It's 18 minutes past 7 here on BBC Radio York, and the High Court in London will today start deliberating on the future of a special community in North Yorkshire. The Camp Hill Village Trust cares for people with learning disabilities who live with families of unpaid volunteers in the village of Botton in the North York Moors. Now, Jules Bellaby is live there in Botton for us this morning. Morning, Jules.
Yes, morning, Georgie. The background to today's High Court hearing is that for 60 years the village here has traditionally been based around what are called co-workers who are unpaid but receive free accommodation, food and other expenses, and they live alongside those with learning disabilities as a community. The trust which runs the village says it's been obliged by Revenue and Customs for tax reasons to change that status, making the co-workers employees and then pay them a salary. Well, on the 13th of this month, those campaigning to stop the move won a court order to temporarily stop it from happening, which they say included halting the dismantling of disabled residents' homes and the eviction of co-workers and their families. Well, today marks the start of the full hearing at the High Court, which will decide the issue. Well, I've had to park up just outside the village because apparently I'm not allowed to set up inside the village, but I'm joined by Eddie Thornton and Fionn Reid, both co-workers here. So, well, just explain. You're being asked to stop being unpaid workers and being paid workers. Well, that's surely a good thing.
Well, it isn't actually, because the ethos of this village and its founding principle was that nobody would ever receive a wage, because otherwise you're valuing one person above another. We feel that the person who sweeps the leaves on the pathways should be as much valued as the administrators of the office, and if you were to pay one person more than another, then there would be in value in that.
And well, I understand that is the almost unique ethos of Botton Village, but surely the law requires you to be paid workers.
Well, the imperative for us to become employed just simply isn't a real imperative. This is something that they've manufactured on the ground, and they've put systems in place to make us look like we should be employed. There's been no consultation with us. The whole idea works on trust, and that trust is gone.
So, in effect, then, are you alone in thinking this, or is this strength of feeling from workers like yourselves universal?
Absolutely. The vast majority of co-workers are fully behind what we're doing, as are the villagers and residents of Botton, as is a vast majority of the employees here. We've had a great relationship with employees for the last 40, 50 years, and they are, the vast majority, 100% behind us.
Well, obviously you've succeeded in the first round of the legal battle in getting the court order. What are you hoping for today?
Well, we're hoping to have an injunction granted that will preserve the status quo, and will lead to a court case where we'll take them for acting against their very aims, their articles and memonarts, and we're hopeful.
Eddie, is there any merit at all in the trust case as far as you're concerned? I mean, they will argue that it's a legal requirement.
And that's the line they keep trotting out. If you go to HMRC and say, hey, do you want some more tax? What do you think they're going to say? This is HMRC responding to a particular set of information that the trust has presented to them. Nobody else has ever been able to see that information. And we have an agreement with HMRC that still stands, and it's one that works in many other communities, including 2 in Scotland that have managed to demerge from CVT, where they continue to work in this model, co-worker model, within the remit of HMRC.
It's a complicated argument. Many listening now will say, well, hang on a minute, what is the big problem about you being paid? Or is it just down to the fact that you're losing benefits, you're losing your free accommodation, you're losing your free child places at schools?
Well, on the free education and the benefits of co-workers, one thing that's bandied around a lot, which is completely incorrect, is the school here. It's not a private school, it's a community school. And it's an undertaking by all the co-workers here in Botton that we pay a contribution, whether you have children or not, to the school and the fees that are required. Now, it's an aim of the trust also to promote Steiner education, something which, along with many other aims, they seem to have forgotten. them.
And of course, you Eddie, went to the school.
I did go to the school, and I believe it helped to form me into the man I am today. And it actually attracts some wonderful people to the community who otherwise wouldn't come. They come so their children can benefit from the Steiner School, which is something that they really believe in. And so we've got the benefit of attracting some absolutely wonderful people to come and work in our community.
It all sounds a bit idyllic. I mean, for instance, do any of you pay taxes then? Is that part and parcel of the thing?
We don't know, because our expenditure is always below that threshold. We don't spend a lot of money. They band figures around that families cost £65,000 to £100,000. Now, what a colleague of mine had this scrutiny thrown at him, so we paid for a financial expert to come and have a look at his costs. Instead of the £65,000 that they gave, which they can't substantiate, it came to £16,000. Now, he receives £14,000 from the school. If you offset that with the £16,000, he doesn't see a penny of the £14,000 either. That goes straight to the trust. You get a cost of £2,000, which seems an incredibly sweet deal.
At the heart of this has got to be the residents, and 80% of them have signed a petition saying they don't want these changes to happen, and that has been completely ignored by the trust. They're all living in fear now that their family homes are going to be destroyed, and we fear that their psychological health and their physical health that is far superior to their contemporaries outside the community is going to fail because of it.
Because that's the ethos of the place. The fact is that you're co-workers, but the idea is it's a family setup.
Absolutely, we live in family homes, and that's one of the things that if we take employment, we're not going to be allowed to do anymore. Under European working directives, we're going to have to live separately from the people that we've always lived with, and that is completely against the ethos of our community.
So this legal argument continues today, and is it the High Court? I think, as I say, you're hoping for. I don't know, obviously a win, but you're hoping from what today?
Well, we're hoping, I mean, if we are successful in getting this injunction, it will be hugely significant, not just for Botton, but for social care in general. It will finally put the so-called disabled person at the centre. We talk about centred-based care. It's a complete myth with the CVT, because they've heard, like Eddie said, there has been a petition. 80% have said they want to keep this model. This is the model they chose. And if we are successful, then their voices will finally be heard.
OK, well, there you are, Georgie. It's a complicated argument, but it's all centred on the people who are living here, whether you continue this unique atmosphere that you have in Botton, or whether after 60 years it changes to, I don't know, a different pattern altogether.
Jules, many thanks. He's in a very windy Botton village in the North York Moors, and in an hour's time we're talking to Andy Payton, Director of Communications for Camp Hill Village Trust. Funnily enough, only the other day I received some fabulous direct mail through the letterbox for Camp Hill. Now I know I'm good at something. People love the things we make. Will you help us? Please be our friend. Asking for donations for the Camp Hill community. We'll talk more about this during the course of the morning. It's 27 minutes past 7. Now, as you heard earlier, the High Court in London will today start deliberating on the future of a special community in North Yorkshire. The Camp Hill Village Trust cares for people with learning disabilities who live with families of unpaid volunteers. Now, that could all change. Jules Bellaby is at Botton for us this morning, near Pickering in the village. Can you just remind us, Jules, about the background to this?
Well, I can. Yes, Georgie. It's in today's High Court hearing is looking into... Well, for 60 years, the village has been traditionally based around what's so-called co-workers who are unpaid but receive free accommodation, food and other expenses, and they live alongside those with learning disabilities and as a community. But the trust which runs the village says it's been obliged by Revenue and Customs for tax reasons to change that status, making the co-workers employees and paying them a salary. That's something that the employees, the co-workers I should say, strongly say shouldn't be happening. Well, I should point out that we're actually outside the village at the moment, because as I understand it, the BBC's been asked not to film and not to record in the village by the trust, so we're having to crouch by the car to stay out of the wind to bring you this report. And I've got with me two co-workers, Eddie and Fionn, who we heard an hour or so ago, and it's gone to court. The we've heard from Hugh John. We've been listening to him on the radio this morning, talking about how it's been forced on them, that it's nothing to do with them, it's revenue and customs. That's a fair argument, isn't it?
That's not a fair argument. They've manufactured this on the ground to make us look like employees. They've gone to the HMRC, presented the information that makes us look like employees. Now, this has been done without our consent, without any dialogue. The whole relationship, how a relationship works between us and the trust is based on trust, and that is no longer there.
And those people who say, well, you would argue against this because you're losing all your benefits, Eddie?
I'd say to them, come and spend a week working in Botton and you will be absolutely knackered by the end of it. We work incredibly hard. Most of the people are working about 60 hours a week. But those people, if they came and spent a week working with us, would probably not want to leave because it is the most fulfilling life that I've ever experienced, and they'd find it so too.
And if you lost the court case?
I don't know. It would be an absolute disaster, an absolute tragedy for social care, not just for us, but for the people we live with, these learning disabled adults who live and work in the village. They're incredibly worried about this. There's a huge amount of anxiety. The amount of times you hear on a daily basis in the last few weeks is, I hope the judge is on our side.
All right, guys. Well, there we are. The battle continues from residents and co-workers here in Botton, Georgie, and I know you will continue with this argument on the programme.
Jules, many thanks this morning. Let's talk to Andy Payton. Andy is Director of Communications for Camp Hill Village Trust, which runs Botton Village. Morning, Andy.
Morning, Georgie.
So why do the HMRC want you to change?
Well, the HMRC have told us that they've conducted an independent review, and they've said that the CVT communities no longer meet the criteria to be eligible for the previous tax agreement. And I know there's an opinion which I've just heard that this has been manufactured, but I really don't accept that. I mean, we've had sort of contact from the HMRC who have said that yes, CVT approached the HMRC, but based on our understanding of the advice that CVT did what HMRC would expect all employers to do and come forward and engage proactively. And they also said that the review that they initiated was not because of the original contact from CVT. It was following an approach by certain co-workers who were also customers. So the HMRC decided to undertake the status review, and then they decided that, in their opinion, co-workers would become employees.
Now, this will be a tax, benefit to the HMRC because, as I understand, the co-workers live tax-free. They get houses, they get food, they get school fees paid. It's sort of a blow, I would imagine, and HMRC want to get some revenue.
Well, I think we believe people should pay their taxes, and that co-workers are, in a sense, they're not volunteers in a conventional sense. They have a whole range of benefits, and I think that's what the situation revolves around.
But surely, time moves on, and maybe it is time to change.
Well, I think it is time to change. I mean, I really don't see that being employed needs to be a block to community life, because this is what I've heard. I think that the whole idea of community life and about Camp Hill is about the quality of the relationships. It's not being employed shouldn't really signify a reduction of commitment.
But a change in the ethos.
Well, really, I'm not sure if it is a change in the ethos. We've got other CVT communities. We've got a CVT community in Malton. We've got a CVT community in Middlesbrough who've moved to employment. But it's not just within CVT. We've got other Camp Hills in the UK, in England and in Scotland, where it's the work is done by employees, and in other countries internationally, in Germany and South Africa. So I think this idea about the ethos going to be destroyed because of employment, it doesn't really stack up for me.
Many thanks this morning. Very good to talk to you. We've been talking about Camp Hill. That was Andy Payton, Director of Communications for Camp Hill Village Trust. Your thoughts, please. 81333. Start your message with the word York.